Good evening and welcome to everybody. I'd like to talk to you about today's date. That is, tonight, the 18th of Elul. And there's two dimensions to this 18th of Elul, which complement one another, which I'd like to illustrate to you how these two aspects of this day, which begins, it's dark outside, so which has just begun, affect us and help us make this month of Elul more meaningful and more powerful. So the 18th of Elul, we all know the number 18, even those who get very rudimentary knowledge of gematria, of numerical values, know that 18, that's the word chai, and chai, of course, is life. And we're told that the 18th of Elul instills life, liveliness, in Hebrew, chayut, kind of a force, a power, an essence into the month of Elul, which I'm going to explain. The other one is the historical fact which surrounds Elul, and that is the birth of two great lights, two great giants in our history, which I'll introduce to you in a moment as well. And these two great giants, in fact, referred to as the Shnei Mo'orot, the two great luminaries of light, referred to at the beginning of Genesis, when it talks about Hashem creating on the fourth day of creation, the two great luminaries, the sun and the moon. So initially they were, we're told, equal in power and in light, and then there was a bit of a readjustment of influences there. So the two great luminaries that were both born on this 18th of Elul, and we're going to see how this all comes together. I think it was 2 weeks ago that the topic of our share was the month of Elul. And what we discussed then was the acronym of Elul, which in a sense gives away what the month of Elul is about. Anila Dodi V'Dodili, you can see in red the letters of Elul, as spelled out as an acronym. I am to my beloved is to me, for the benefit of those who may not have been there 2 weeks ago. It's a month when our relationship with Hashem is strengthened, is closer than other times of the year. And what does that mean? What does it mean? What is the real significance of the fact that we're closer to God 1 month than another? Well, this is where the two great luminaries of the 18th of Elul are going to explain to us how we can actually instill a sense of passion in Elul, a sense of really making Elul come alive, and not just being something very technical. We know the rules of Elul and the laws of Elul, the practices of Elul, but all that can become very mechanical. So who are we talking about here? We're talking about two great Hasidic giants, both of whom were born on the 18th of Elul. Rabbi Shnei Zalman, left to right, the Baal Shem Tov, born in 1698 and passed away in 1760. 15 years earlier, his major disciple, Shnei Zalman of Liadi, was born in 1745. He passed away in 1813. And these are the fathers of Hasidic philosophy. The Baal Shem Tov, responsible for the general Hasidic movement that he began towards the latter part of his life, and lived very long. He died at the age of 62, as you can see. It was only the age of 36 that he revealed himself. So that's the Baal Shem Tov, and Shnei Zalman of Liadi, who called himself a spiritual grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. He never studied directly under him. He was a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov's main disciple, who was the Maggid of Mezrich. And so he referred to the Baal Shem Tov as the Zayda, because spiritually, as a disciple, he was, 2 generations removed from him in a sense. Apparently, they did meet once,
I didn't get
but it was no relationship of direct master to students. I'm not sure how genuine the pictures are, particularly the one on the left, but this is real photographs. This is in the town of Mezhibush. I visited there many years ago. In the town of Mezhibush, they reconstructed the Baal Shem Tov's shul because it had been standing until the beginning of the last century. I think it kind of got destroyed, maybe even after the First World War. And so there were drawings and fairly recently, it was reconstituted, both outdoors as well as from drawings inside as well. And this is an actual photograph of the interior of the Baal Shem Tov shul, which kind of fits in with drawings from before. People are dressed quite warmly and trying to look like Ukrainians there in the winter. There in Mezhibush, not far from the shul, is where the Baal Shem Tov was actually buried. I visited that burial site as well. You can see the old cemetery, and then in the background, the building that was raised above the building, which was raised above the grave of the Baal Shem Tov. Right here in the middle is the actual tombstone marker of the Baal Shem Tov to his, on the right of the slide, somewhere here, as you can see, is his great disciple, Rabbi Zev Wolf Kitzes, for those of you who know the story of the young Rosh Hashanah when he was asked to blow shofar and lost his notes, which is a story for another time, but that's the great disciple. And just while we're busy here, this is also a place I visited on the same trip. That is the burial site of the Alter Rebbe, as I mentioned, Pshnei Zalman of Liadi, also born 18 Elul, and this is the actual interior of the tombstone and the marker above the grave where he is buried. So these are the two giants, and they're going to help us to get into what the essence of Elul really is all about. These great giants introduced a new approach. When I say new approach, it wasn't brand new. It had always existed. It was the approach of studying the inner dimensions of Torah, what's called Pnimiyut HaTorah, or the inner essence. Think of it as the soul of the Torah. You've got the exterior, you've got the body, and you've got the interior of the Torah. And that was always kept very private, and it was known as Kabbalah, and there was a book called the Zohar, which was not, for public consumption and public discussion. And the Baal Shem Tov and his disciple, Pshnei Zalman of Liadi, or disciple's disciple, they kind of burst that out into the open. They outed it. It began before. The Ari already mentions that it is now a mitzvah to reveal this wisdom, which until now had been kept kind of very private and for specific individuals. The Baal Shem Tov tells a story of when he visited on a particular date, and he had a revelation of Mashiach. And of course, he asked the question any of us would ask if we were in the presence of Mashiach, sir. So when's the day? And the Baal Shem Tov, the Mashiach's reply to the Baal Shem Tov was, when your well springs start spreading out around the world. In fact, it's a Hasidic song with the words, I'm not singing it, but Emai Taika Atimar, that's a Baal Shem Tov's line. When, sir, are you coming? And the Baal Shem Tov replying, Lichshi afutzu mainotech achutza, when your wellspring start to burst forth. So the Baal Shem Tov began this process of revealing hidden dimensions of Torah, and the Pshnei Zalman of Liadi, the other birthday boy for today, tomorrow, he took it even further by revealing it. Why did this process begin? Well, the closer we get to Mashiach, the more the further we're getting from Matan Torah, and the more we're disconnected from our source, the more we need this to revive ourselves and to remain connected. And in order to get to the new world of Mashiach, we need to delve deeper into these depths of Torah. Was it extremely well received? It was controversial. Many people did not accept the Baal Shem Tov's approach, were very threatened by it. This was shortly after the terrible tragedy with Shabtai Tzvi, which had really, hurt the morale and destroyed the spiritual fiber of the Jewish people. And now, the Baal Shem Tov came along, and what he was teaching, what he was preaching seemed to be very controversial, and people were nervous of it, understandably. When the Pnei Zalman of Liadi, who took it to a new level, took over kind of and started to spread this at levels that never before had been, it was not well accepted by all. And, along with the sprouting of the Hasidut of the Pnei Zalman of Liadi, known as Chabad Hasidut, came a huge opposition of the Lithuanian Jewry that would not accept this, and the concept of a mitnaged, a misnaged, or an opponent to the Hasidic movement was born then. Of course, that's blown over now. I will show you an illustration of that towards the end of our shiur. Even in the spiritual realms, what the Pnei Zalman of Liadi was doing did not gain, it seems, immediate acceptance. And Pnei Zalman explained that his imprisonment, when he was arrested by the Tsarist authorities and held in prison until finally he was freed, that was actually an expression of a disapproval, a threat against what he was doing below, spreading secrets of Torah. And it is when he was freed from the prison in Petersburg, I think Peter and Paul Fortress it's called, and he was let out. It was the vindication that this approach in Judaism he had taken was actually being accepted. So he saw his imprisonment, and we view his imprisonment as not just an incarceration here, but a threat against an approach which was then vindicated by his freedom. So what is this Hasidic movement about? What is this teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe or the Pnei Zalman of Liadi? It's about revealing the soul of the Torah. It's about helping us create a close relationship with Hashem. It's about understanding that the reason why God made this world is because he wanted to create a presence for himself, so to speak, in a physical world, one which would, without the work that we're doing as Jews, be completely and totally alien to him. Essentially, the Baal Shem Tov's teaching was that every person can serve God. The Pnei Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, taught us how every single person is able to serve Hashem. So, how do we encapsulate these teachings of Hasidut, particularly the core teachings of the Baal Shem Tov? So here are the key teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, and these were kind of taught by him, but they were then further elaborated upon and taught further by Pnei Zalman. Number one, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. That's not the Baal Shem Tov's teaching. That's in the Torah. But we struggle with it. We struggle to understand how to do this. And what the Baal Shem Tov taught us, and this is also picked up in the book, I happen to have it on my desk, the book of Tanya, which is the key, one of the key books written by Pnei Zalman of Liadi. In the 32nd chapter, of course, 32nd chapter is Leiv 32, the heart of the Tanya. Pnei Zalman elaborates upon this. Rabbi Akiva tells us it's a core teaching of the entire Torah, Klal Gadol BaTorah. Hillel, when somebody came to him and said, "Convert me while I stand on one leg," said to him, "Well, don't do what is hateful to you, to others. That's the core, the foundation of the Torah. Go and go and learn the rest. And we struggle to understand how love of your fellow can be the foundation of the Torah when there's so many aspects that have got nothing to do with society. And the Baal Shem Tov says to us, no, you can love a fellow as yourself when you realize that you're looking at a soul. When you look at a body, then you're looking at clothing, you're looking at characteristics, you're looking at standing, social standing, you're looking at values, etc. And you may not like what you're seeing, but if you look at the soul, your soul's going to resonate with that soul, and that's going to create that bond. And that we would have to study the 32nd of Tanya in a bit of more detail, is how this becomes a foundation, because the entire foundation of all of Torah is actually realizing that we're looking at the core, we're looking at the soul, we're not looking at the externalities, and that's the foundation of the entire Torah. So that was a key teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, not just that you have to love your fellows yourself, that's in the Torah, but he showed us how if we look at the core, if we look at the soul of the individual, then every person has a soul, and we don't know. Because we know great mavens on souls, we don't know what it's about, and therefore we have to have an affinity and a resonance with every single soul. That's one of the core teachings. Serving God with joy. Again, that's not novel to the Baal Shem Tov, but he explained to us how we do it, and he made it into a very important component of our service. That serving with joy had to be something that permeated us all the time. And he explained, and that's also a teaching which is picked up in Tanya, he explained that if you look at the soul, then the spiritual joy, the joy of the soul, is a constant one. If you're looking at circumstances around you, sometimes you want to be happy, sometimes you don't. But if you appreciate that you were endowed with a soul, and that soul is a particle of God, that fills you with a joy that allows you to serve the Almighty with simcha every single moment of your life. He taught the principle of constant creation, ongoing renewal of the world, encapsulated in the verse which we actually say in our prayers every day. That is, that God recreates the world every day at every moment. Not that Hashem created like a carpenter would make a table and then walk away from it, the table still stands. That's not how the world was made. God created a world, and his life force has to be creating and recreating an ongoing renewal of this world in order for it to exist. And that's a core teaching which is very closely allied to the concept of Hashgacha Pratit, that God is completely in macro control of the world. Not that he I'm sure you all heard the joke of the Shalom Bayit in the home, where the husband makes the big decisions, like should America withdraw from Kabul or not, whereas the wife makes the smaller decisions, like what's for dinner, and what color we're going to paint. Now we're buying a new car, and so forth. So it's not God made the big decisions and small control. Well, it just happens all by itself. Hashgacha Pratit says that every single event that happens in this world is divinely orchestrated. And the famous parable is of a leaf that falls off a tree and comes resting down on the ground. And we're told that the moment and the place where this leaf rested is divinely ordained. If you pick up the leaf, under there is a little worm who was feeling cold in the great wind, and the leaf, of course, protected and saved the life of this creature of Hashem. So those two concepts, number 3 and number 4, are very closely connected. And the Baal Shem Tov always taught us that everything you see and hear must teach you a lesson in the service of God. That everything you see and everything you hear has to teach you a lesson in the service of Hashem. So these are kind of the key teachings of Baal Shem Tov. And if you look at them all, it's about looking at the core of the individuals and of the world, and not just looking at the superficiality. The Talmud uses the parable doing a mitzvah without kavanah is like a body without a soul. We all know what a body without a soul is. It's very sad and has no life in it. A mitzvah without kavanah, without proper intent. In other words, the mitzvah without the soul of the mitzvah is not a mitzvah that has life in it. So the teachings of Hasidut are about instilling life. The teachings of Hasidut are about the value of every Jew. And as I mentioned, the Jews were at an all-time low. It was shortly after the Chmielnicki massacres. It was after Shabtai Tzvi. And there was this belief, there was this philosophy that there's an elite of scholars, there's an elite of learned people, which was also, for some reason, the wealthy elite, the people who could, afford to study, to send children to yeshivot, and so forth. And there was and that the ignorant peasants, menial workers, farm workers, had no intrinsic value. But as I said, that's only if you look at the externalities. But if you look at the soul, who says that the soul of a Torah scholar is in any way at a higher level than that of a peasant who has to handle the plow for several hours in the beating sun? We can only see the profession, the education. We cannot see the soul, and we believe that that's the core and the most important thing. And the Baal Shem Tov came to revive the Jewish people who were suffering greatly from the pain of this ostracism of the masses, of the false faith that had been espoused by false messiahs, as well as the physical pain of pogroms and of the massacres and of Chmielnicki, rampaging throughout that part of the world. Baal Shem Tov came along and revived them. His name was Yisrael Baal Shem. And when a person is faint, a person is physically fainted, one of the ways that we bring them around is by shouting their name. And Hasidut explains that a name kind of goes to the core, because the name is very closely related to the essence of an individual. And that's why when parents give a child a name, they need to have divine inspiration. It's Ruach HaKodesh that informs them and helps them choose a name, because a name is not just a random way of referring to this person, this individual. It is a designation and a description of the core and the essence of the individual, in fact, of the soul. The Baal Shem Tov needed, this is why when somebody is faint and you call their name, they're going to kind of wake up and open their eyes and respond. And the Baal Shem Tov, who was Yisrael, was the conscience of the Jewish people and had to revive the communal soul, something which is referred to as Knesset Yisrael, or the gathering of all the souls of the Jewish people. He had to reawaken the Jewish people who were in a torpor, who were in a sleep, who were in a faint, because they had suffered from so many different directions in the course of their difficult times ahead. So let's kind of wrap this around and tie this back with Elul. We said that the teachings of Hasidut, as brought about by the Baal Shem Tov, founder of General Hasidut, Reb Shnei Zalman of Liadidi, Alter Rebbe, founder of Chabad Hasidut, in particular, that branch, that was a born, as I said, on the 18th of Elul. With their teachings, we can get into the core and the life of Elul. And this is a well-known parable. In fact, to find this picture, I Googled the kings in the field in Google Images, but my first response, Google gives you those kind of what do we call it? Quick summary explanation of the word that you're searching for. It says, there is a widely held rabbinic belief in the concept of the king in the field during Elul? Well, it's not a widely held rabbinic belief. It is a core teaching of Hasidut. It is found in one of the writings of Rabbi Zalman Liadi, in the book called Likutei Torah, where he uses the example, the parable, to explain Elul of a king in the field. As I said, there is a lot of mechanical stuff we do in Elul. We know that during this month we have to do introspection. We know that we give extra charity. We know that we daven extra hard, that we hear the shofar to prepare for Rosh Hashanah, that we recite an extra psalm. But those are all kind of mechanical actions. But what's the core of the month of Elul? Says Rabbi Zalman Liadi, the king's in the palace. That's where the king belongs. Of course, the king here is a parable for the Almighty. But once a year, he goes out into the field. And the story that Zalman tells in Likutei Torah is that the king is about to, come into the city, but before he goes into the city and locks himself up in the palace, where it's going to be very difficult to get to him, because once he's in the palace, you need an audience, you need to get past the guards, you need to, justify that the king should give you his time. But before that, the king stays in the field for a while. While he's in the field, any individual can simply go in up to the king and give his request. So it's a time of revelation. It's a time where God finds himself closer to us, where we can simply walk up to him. And to go to the king, there's a protocol. In the palace, you got to get dressed properly. There's a uniform, there's a dress code, in the field, even the peasants in their work clothes can just walk up to the king. They can lay out their deepest request. That's the month of Elul. Interesting that the Baal Shem Tov and Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, both were born during this month of Elul, almost saying to us that they were about anybody having access to Hashem, anybody being able to develop a relationship with Hashem. As I said earlier, the Baal Shem Tov taught that any person can have a relationship with God, and Zalman taught us how that could be accomplished. And the 18th of Elul, because this is the day that embodies the revelation of those two great lights of this, puts a new life into Elul. And suddenly we realize what Elul is all about. It's not just about the things that we do. It's just the fact that we have the unbelievable opportunity of being there, right with Hashem, to talk to him with no barriers, with no guards, with no protocols, with no dress code, just our soul pouring out its deepest needs and requests directly to Hashem, and he's there listening to each of us. It's in that sense that the teachings of the two great birthday celebrants of the next 24 hours bring a new dimension of chayus, of life, and of vitality into the month of Elul. There are 12 days left, from the 18th until the end of the month. It's tradition to use each of these months for introspection into one of the past days of the year. So the 18th, that's the day that you think about the month of Tishrei, and the 19th, the month of Cheshvan, and so forth. Use the days as well as you can, and make yourself ready for Yom Tov. Look forward to seeing you here same time, same place, next Wednesday.
Thank you, Rabbi Shkaya, Rabbi.